Left is Stu Sandler from Grand River Strategies, a Republican political consulting firm here in Michigan. And at the end is former Congressman Bart Stupak from right here in the 1st District of Michigan. Mr. Stupak is now a lobbyist with Venable in Washington, D.C. And so we want to talk a bit about what are the issues related to the Trump era. And we want to kick it off by talking about what Mr. Trump actually tweeted already this morning. Okay. So he had 4 things on his mind, looks like, when he woke up this morning. First, he wanted to talk about Samantha Bee, and she said some nasty things about his daughter, Ivanka. He also wanted to reference the economic forecast, which came out shortly after that. He referenced the Russian hoax again and how much the investigation is costing us. And then finally, he said something about our good friends from Canada and maybe considering tariffs on timber and lumber. So what does that do to us when we're waking up to these kinds of things every morning? And Stu, would you like to take that one first?
Sure. And thank you. Thanks for having me. You know, I view this as sort of a revolutionary moment in communication. First of all, I'm surprised to see that we're living in the Trump era. I didn't know it was an era. It's 18 months, but I guess we're in the era now. But I think just like fireside chats with Roosevelt, Trump is changing the way elected officials communicate. Now he has a direct line of communication to the people, and he's using it. And I think the most important thing that you mentioned in that was the economic numbers. If you look at all the regulatory reform that the Trump administration's done, you look at the tax reform that the Republican House and Senate and President Trump put through, we have the lowest unemployment numbers in 18 years. It's phenomenal. 223,000 jobs were added in May. It's at 3.8%. You can't argue with that kind of success. From so many levels, Trump is succeeding. People might not like his style, but you can't argue with the results.
So you think the Trump era so far is going great?
I think it is, and I think what you're seeing too is, you know, Democrats thought initially that they were going to have a lot of success because normally in a midterm, the party that does not have the president really exploits a large advantage. But I think you're seeing it diminish as it goes on because I think people are happy with his results. You know, CNN put out a poll today showing that independents now lean more towards a Republican candidate than a Democrat candidate on a generic ballot.
So Bart, you're from an area here that did support President Trump in his election, yet also supported you for many, many years.
Sure.
We're seeing them, I think, continue to, you know, be very closely watching what's going on. What do you think? How is this affecting us here?
Well, I think the president has done some good things, but I don't think the fine numbers you see for the economy and all that is due just to Mr. Trump or to the Republican Congress. I think a lot of those basis factors were set by the previous administration. We're seeing the follow-through on it. The tax reform bill, I don't see how it helps average Americans. So I don't think that's such a big success. Does it help the economy? Did it give the economy a boost? Yes, and I'll give him credit for that. Has he deregulated some parts of government that should be? Yes. But at the same time, any other project that the president has ran on really has not come to fruition. And you mentioned it, 4 tweets today. So what are we supposed to focus on? I mean, if you want government to be successful, and if you want the president to be successful, let's focus on some of these issues instead of every day you get 4 tweets, and it's only, what, 10 o'clock? We'll have a couple more by noon, and by 5 o'clock tonight, he'll disown every tweet. I mean, that's the problem. The uncertainty is not, it's good for my business, but it is not good for the country.
Well, to follow up on the tweets a bit, I'll continue with you, Bart. One of them was about our good friends in Canada. Yeah. And in Michigan, we know how much we rely on that relationship with Canada, where it might be different.
Largest trading partnership in the world is Michigan and Canada.
Yeah.
Now, what are these tariffs going to do to our economy? I think it's really going to hurt Michigan. And I know many of the Republican members are just, they beg them not to do it. So, I mean, he says he wants to renegotiate NAFTA. To negotiate, you need 2 people. You need 2 parties at the table. Right now, we only have 1. And the rhetoric that he's putting forth and the tariffs he's putting forth does not help that discussion at all. And I hope we could have a discussion and not a tweet war on tariffs and other things that should be addressed.
I think you look at what Trump is doing, and it's been masterful how he's relating to other countries. You know, the fact that he's trying to negotiate from a position of strength that for so many years there's been a unilateral trade war directed against the United States, where we've lost, where we've imported more than we've exported, and we've basically been on the wrong side of it. And frankly, what President Trump is doing is negotiating from a level of strength, and he's getting countries to come to the table and negotiate for more fairer for job creators and for American workers. And I think it's actually working. And all you have to do from an international perspective is look what's going on with North Korea. For decades, that problem stymied the United States government, where presidents gave the North Koreans, concession after concession after concession, and never got anything out of it. Now you have actually Kim Jong-un coming to the table because President Trump is negotiating from a position of strength. And when people get caught up in the tweets, I think this president, unrelated to kind of how he's very focused. His administration is very focused. He puts out a lot of clutter that get all sorts of people sort of chasing it. All the talking heads chase it in the other direction. But if you look at what this administration is doing, it's been methodical.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. We heard more than one session earlier this week refer to the sort of so what factor, right? He's putting out these tweets, it's antagonizing people, but it's taking the eye off the ball of what is really in his agenda one way or another. I mean, do you think that's intentional?
I do. I think this, he's messing. Like, I grew up in New York, so I've had 30 years of Trump before he became a politician. I saw how he dealt with the New York media. It was masterful, and frankly, they were a lot tougher on him than the Washington press corps is. I mean, this is kind of child's play when he deals with the Washington press corps, because he had 30 years of dealing with a really hardcore New York press that was very antagonistic. He was on the front page of the New York Daily News, Newsday, every single day, all these sort of headlines. He's used to this, and I think what he's gotten the DC press corps to do is to chase the ball one way while he goes the other, and I think he's very successful at it.
Mm-hmm. So what about these attacks on the media? So one of the tweets this morning was just that. Now, you can argue whether it was fair or not, but it's certainly a theme he likes to use.
Well, but I mean, when you get in an argument with somebody, what Samantha Bede said was totally wrong, should be condemned, but it just gives you an indication of how he's operating as the President of the United States, which I think is beneath the office, beneath the individual. He should not be. You can have arguments with people, but when you do, leave them with their dignity. You don't need to rip and destroy everything. You talk about the trade deals. We blame other countries because they took advantage of us. It was the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives that agreed to those trade deals. So, yes, should they be renegotiated? Should it be fair? Sure. But I don't think you can blame other countries for us agreeing to a trade agreement. So when you get to NAFTA and all that, let's go back and revisit it. But if you don't get your own way, don't start poking people in the eye, and that's unfortunately what this president does.
But I think that's exactly the point about let's revisit NAFTA. NAFTA is over 20 years old.
Sure.
Frankly, there are parts of NAFTA that do not benefit the United States. I think the president is making a point. Let's renegotiate this. Let's look into this. Let's see what problems that the United States have that can be resolved, and let's do it from a position of strength. And I think he's been pretty masterful at getting the benefits from it.
Well, I think his position of strength in this one is actually going to hurt Michigan, hurt our economy, and actually hurt this country.
Well, we'll see. But for right now, what the empirical data says is it's actually helping.
Well, it's just started today. I don't know how it can be helping when it just started today. So, I mean, let's give it a little time. Look, again, going back to NAFTA, in order to have an agreement, you need two sides, and there has to be a mutual agreement and Canada said, we don't want to negotiate NAFTA. We like it. Mexico's basically same thing. Of course, you can't get Mexico to the table because he keeps saying they're going to build this wall and they're going to pay for it, which isn't going to happen. So, I mean, the president, he's a master at distraction. I'll give you that. But there are serious issues that need serious discussions. And a tweet just doesn't make it. And I wish he would grow into the job. And I don't mean he has to be docile, but
sure.
be more respectful of people and civility that we talked a lot about up here at this conference. I wish he would extend that to his activities and his presidency.
But what's interesting, Congressman, and I think you were from this area. You served this area with great distinction over the years. I think if you talk to the constituents of this area, you look at the support and approval he has, he's probably at what, 65%, 75% approval here? I mean, this district now has become, and I read the piece he wrote last July about how the Democratic Party is becoming more closed to different voices, and that people like you might not be able to serve anymore as an elected official because of certain positions you take. You look at someone like Trump, who people of this area relate to. They actually like the way he communicates. I think if you talk to them, they finally feel like a president is talking to them directly.
Oh, I talk to them all the time. I still live here. I'll leave here, I'll go to Escanaba and Menominee where I live. And I disagree with you. They may support his policies. They do not like his rhetoric. They do not like the way he talks. They do not like the undignified way he conducts himself. So, now, does that mean they're going to vote against him or throw him out or something? No. But if everyone you talk to, they'd say, can't he just tone it down a little bit? Can't we just be more respectful of each other? Can't we bring some civility to this discussion?
So in the few minutes we have left, I wanted to jump to the next thing, or maybe the last thing, which is this November election coming up. And, you know, to Trump or not to Trump, right? In the election, we've seen Attorney General Bill Schuette, as he's running for governor, really embracing President Trump. We've seen others less so, and we've seen many Democrats running against President Trump. What do you recommend to your friends right now running?
I've recommended from the time he got the nomination to embrace him. He's the Republican nominee. He's the Republican leader of the party. You will be the Trump candidate as a Republican whether you embrace him or not. And frankly, I think Republicans support him overwhelmingly. Look at Bill Schuette's lead in the primary. It is based on the fact, partially, that he has the Trump endorsement. He's also a great candidate, but the Trump endorsement has certainly helped solidify that lead. Beyond that, you look at the numbers in Michigan. Donald Trump's numbers in Michigan right now are better than they were in October 2016. I think he has a very strong base in Michigan. I went to the Washington Township rally in Macomb County, where you have the home of the Reagan Democrats. It was a massive turnout and a massive amount of support. I think Republicans are going to do very well this cycle.
As a Democrat, I would ignore Trump. Just ignore him. I mean, when I ran up here, I didn't bring in all kinds of national leaders. You have to run on your own party, your own agenda. You know, what are the issues that are important to you? What's important to Northern Michigan? Jobs, the economy, things like this. That's what you run on. Just ignore the president. And you're the person who's on the ballot, not the president. So tell people what you're going to do for them. Ignore the president. He's going to be a distraction anyways. Just ignore it. Do your own job. Do your job, and you'll be okay in politics. And I would predict that if the election was today, Trump would lose Michigan.
To Bernie Sanders or to Elizabeth Warren?
Probably to someone like Tim Ryan from Ohio. I think our party's going to swing back. You're not going to have a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren as our nominee. Maybe a Mark Warner out of Virginia. Something like that.
I mean, it's interesting to watch the division in the Democratic Party. People talk about the division in the Republican Party, but you take a look at this last Democratic State Convention, there were a lot of divisiveness, there was a lot of fraying, and frankly, there's a lot of division, and I've talked to a lot of Democrats up here, that has not been repaired.
But see, Stu, like I've always said, you know, I don't belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat, okay? And Will Rogers is the one who said that many years ago, and he's still correct today. You know, I don't belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat. So
you're an outlier.
I'm an outlier, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I guess last thing is we have just a minute left to do. How is this affecting your office politics? I mean, we know kind of your backgrounds, but are people really talking about Trump in your office, or are you trying to kind of leave that aside and focus on the work to be done?
I'm a Republican consulting firm. Yes, we're talking about him. I mean, you know, there is a lot of sort of people who get really caught up and really sort of worked up about it. But I do think that we're having important conversations, and I do, you know, this country has always been built on high levels of, you know, real parties going at it. I mean, nobody's dying in the streets, so you know, over politics, so that's a good thing right now. But you know, yeah, it's a high level of discourse, but I think it's important discussions.
My main office is Washington, D.C., and of course, Washington, D.C., that's all you do is talk politics. But from a business point of view, President Trump's been good for business because clients do not know what's going to happen. They'll come in and say, help us understand what's going to happen. What will the House Republicans do? What will the Democrats do? We don't know what the president's going to do. Give us more options. So it's a constant discussion, this administration, what the president's going to tweet next or what he's going to do next. And all you can do is try to give them many ideas, different avenues this policy may take.
We need to wrap it up there, so I think that's going to be the last comment. Thank you, Bart Stupak, Stu Sandler, for your participation today.